We're live. So welcome. I got you
Thank
as you
you.
were taking a sip with the bubbles and everything, right?
How nice of you to do that to me. Hi,
Hey,
everybody. Go on.
anytime.
Hi.
Welcome everyone to Everything is Attitude. We're lucky enough to have a two-time guest now, sitting on the couch with Rosemary. Rosemary, would you like to introduce our guest and yourself? Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, hello, everybody. We hope you can see us. Jeff is so big next to me. So I don't know if I look like a little midget, but it's going to work anyway. We don't care, do we, really?
Well, that doesn't say anything about you, Rosemary. Everybody would look small next to Jeff, I think.
That's true.
Bravo.
Oh, it's true. It's very true. Yeah, it is true. Um, all right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Everything is Attitude. Yes, we have our lovely two-time guest now, Jeff Galusa. Say hi, Jeff.
Hey, folks.
And Jeff has agreed to come on the show, and in payment for his there's always a payment, right? There's always a
Reciprocity.
there's got to be a temptation. And so my house, what does it smell like, Jeff?
A gourmet meal of some sort.
And it really is. It smells fabulous. Arroz con pollo. Which means really rice with chicken, but it's got all sorts of Spanish rice with garlic and.
Is it in the cookbook?
Yes, of course, it's in it's
Right
in
on.
the cookbook. So, but it's like this delicious smell with pimentos and tomatoes and onions and garlic and rice and chicken and paprika and turmeric and on it goes. It just keeps going on and I've actually cooked it in a new pan, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's going to turn out well, because I've never used this pan before. I've got this beautiful electric skillet, so I've tried it out with that. So, and for dessert, I can tell you it was going to be a surprise, but I can tell you because Jeff took a peek. We've got some small little phyllo pastry cases filled with creme patissiere, otherwise known as pastry cream.
She thinks I only looked at it.
Oh, did you taste it as well? Oh well, don't matter. You get one less after dinner. And I made the pastry cream this afternoon and filled the pastry cases about an hour ago, and I'm going to dust them with some grated chocolate, and they do look nice, right? They do look nice. Anyway, that's what I've been doing all day. What have you been doing all day, Al?
I've been working, and more work. And I actually, I took a break. I took a break, and we spoke for a little bit too, Rosemary. So that was nice.
I bet we spoke for about an hour or so all day
Probably
today,
did.
on and off. We've probably spoken 3 or 4 times today about absolutely very little.
Well, no, we spoke about the course too, right? The course is getting
We're talking
started.
about the online course, which we're very excited about. That starts next week.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so all right, our topic today. I've lost you, Al. And he'll come back on in a minute. This happens sometimes. So I don't know if we're still live or if he's live. Let's pretend we're live.
I'm believing that we are.
Shall we pretend that we're live? Because we've just lost the connection with Alan. I don't know if anybody can see us or not. Years and years ago, there was this. Oh, there we are.
I think you still are. I'm getting kicked off for some reason, but I think you still were live. Yeah.
Well, we were talking as if we were years and years ago, because in my teens and early 20s, there was this fantastic comedian whose name I've forgotten for the minute. Corbett, I think his name was. Anyway, he had this comedy show, and part of the show that he had an hour show, and part of the show he had this thing where he would say, "Who is Sylvia? Where is she?" It's like you've lost. She's gone out into space somewhere. And every week he would do a little bit skit about Sylvia, but he could never find her. And when we go blank and we go, we don't know if we're live or not, I really feel like saying, are we there? Who is there? Who is listening? Where are we? Anyway, it just reminds me of I think it was Ronnie Corbett, who is Sylvia. All those Brits out there who might listen to this, who are my age, will remember this. Let's get to topic. How about a topic? We don't think we have a topic, do we, Al? I think we're just going to.
We do have a topic. It's
What is it?
go with the flow, right? We were talking.
Going with the flow. In other words, we don't have a topic. Jeff came on just because he likes to be on.
I was invited.
Yes, he was, and we love him on the here, don't we? We love for him to be on. So I think we should just. I said to him, "What would you like to talk about?" He looked at me like, "I don't know." So I said, "Okay, then." We don't know either, do we, Al? So it's going to be one of those off-the-cuff moments.
Well, Rosemary, Jeff did say, and this seems to be his personality, right? He said, kind of let it go where it wants to go, right, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, but we do have to have a direction, and somebody has to give us that direction. It looks like it's going to be me who's going to give.
Well, we're going to be talking about ingredients for the attitude for everything is attitude.
Yeah, and I've been cooking all afternoon. Oh, sorry. Actually, it only took me 3 hours. It's not like I've been cooking all day. This whole process took me from 2 till 5. There we are. And a gourmet meal out of that. You see, if you get this cookbook, you'll be able to do the same thing. It's so good. It's so fun. Right, let's get to topic. I have a brilliant attitude about cooking because I like to try things and I like to taste things. And I think, my interest and my curiosity about food sort of follows me through my curiosity about life, my curiosity about, what I do. People think that if you've been doing something for 30, 40 years, which of course I have been a spiritual medium, working as a spiritual medium for all of that time, I know people think I don't look that old, and in fact, they're amazed when they find out that I'm only 60. I'm 62 or something. Anyway, I'm lying. But people think that if you have been doing something for a long time, then it gets to be a bit stale. It gets to be a bit boring, and often people say to me, "Well, don't you ever get tired of talking to the spirit world?" And I look at them as if they are mad, as if they are crazy, because I have, without a doubt, the best job in the world, I think. And the thing that I love about my job is that every day I am once again amazed or shocked or thrilled or something, just things still surprise me. Messages still surprise me. People's responses to messages still surprise me. We had a fantastic show yesterday, I think, Al. I don't know what you think, but I thought we had a fantastic YouTube show yesterday. And the responses afterwards and the emails that I got in my office from people, it was just amazing. So I feel really, really fortunate. It's easy for me in my work. It's easy for me to have a very, very positive attitude. Even when I'm dealing with people who are dying, even when I'm dealing with people who have had a loss, particularly when I'm dealing with people who have lost their child, because that to me has to be the hardest loss to bear. And I know, Jeff, you lost your son. For people who have not seen you before, Jeff lost his son. And I think that, for me, from my point of view, I don't mean to sound callous when I'm saying this to you, Jeff, but to me, it's such an exciting thing every single time. I never get tired of it. I never get tired of connecting with the spirit world. I never get tired of reaching out to find those kids whose parents are desperately trying to find them. And it's easy for me to have that really, really positive attitude. And it's easy for me to, because I have the ingredients. What ingredients do you need to find inspiration in life? We could name 1,000 ingredients, and I have them all. Even though I think part of the ingredients have to do with being sensitive, being aware, being compassionate, being empathetic, which means suffering pain. But even when I'm suffering pain through somebody else and somebody else's pain, I still feel that it's the most fantastic and amazing thing. Jeff, you've been on the receiving end of this, and in fact, Jeff you came the other day to the house, and he was talking about the first time and how we met you and all the rest of it. And I mean, you've had that amazing experience. Does that help you, having had the experience that you've had with me? Does that help you with your attitude?
By
Do
all
you
means,
think?
yeah, for sure. That was that willingness to let go of an unknown, or actually to let go of a known. When we lost our son, there was a huge trauma, as anybody would know. That was horrific. But then to step out of that toward healing, which I assumed when we came to see Rosemary the first time, who we had not met before, that there was going to be some information there that was going to help us. So both my wife and I were open to the possibility of a change in the way we perceived our experience. And that was really what happened.
Can I just ask you, because I know that we get so many emails come through my office from people who say, well, what does it mean if if you have a consultation with Rosemary? What does that mean actually? And you came sort of blind. I mean, did you know of anyone who'd been to see me before?
No, or any medium for that matter.
So
I had heard those words. I knew of what mediums did, but I had no experience or relationship.
So can you sort of explain? I think you came because you were desperate, right?
Yeah.
And Andrea, but
it was spearheaded by my wife, Andrea. She was the one that took the lead, and again, she had been looking for some help. We went to our bookshelf, and we had been gifted the book, The Eagle and the Rose, which was one of Rosemary's books that was on the bestseller list for years.
It was my first, was still
Your
is
first
out
book.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
still, yeah.
And that book jumped off the shelf, and when Andrea was reading that book, it opened up the possibility that, well, maybe we could get an appointment with this woman and see what she has to say for us, having read that book.
Well, do you know when because I know that you drove a long way, didn't you?
Yeah, it was about 6 hours.
And you stayed overnight. I found out all of this. I mean, how many years we've known each other, and I found out this just the other day.
Well, we drove the day before because it was across New England, and we didn't want to be caught in snow, and it was early winter. So we figured we'd go the day before, that way we wouldn't get blocked out of the appointment, knowing that you're in great demand, and we didn't want to miss the opportunity.
Well, so, I mean, you came all that way in the hopes that something. Did you have any expectations of any kind? I mean, to drive all that way.
I had an idea, having also read parts of the book. I hadn't read all of The Eagle and the Rose, but I had flipped through and read a couple of chapters. So I had an idea about what we might experience. And again, 6 months later, I mean, it was 7 months from when our son passed until the time that we had an appointment with you. We had kind of gotten beyond that shocking, physical shocking, mental blocking experience of a suicide. And so we were looking for windows and doorways to move on, and this was one of them. So being coached by my wife to come along, I mean, I'm not skeptic of, I know Rosemary says often be skeptical when you're going to sit with a medium, and it's okay to be skeptical, but being a fire retrospective, I have a struggle with and that's another story.
Yeah, he's a retrospective soul.
So my doubt is in the front.
And for having a positive, for a retrospective soul to have a positive attitude, I have to tell you, it's tough. You've worked at it, right? But sorry, go ahead with
Well, we also, me personally, I've had a great deal of experience with the Native American culture in the West. And that had been going on for a number of years before our son passed. So I had some ideas about connecting with our ancestors, our family, our friends on the other side, people that had crossed over and were over there in the spirit form. So that was part of my belief system. It still is today, not was. And so this opportunity to sit with Rosemary was validate. Hopefully, it was going to validate some of that and open more. Again, not really understanding or knowing what was going to happen.
So, can you? I mean, I don't. This is not. I don't want you to talk about me, but I'm in the story, so
Right.
you know. It's. But for people out there who've never had a consultation with somebody like myself, who've never experienced it, who've wondered about it, or what have you, I mean, you sort of had a certain expectation. So then, what?
We got to Rosemary's house the day of our appointment, which was in early December, 15 years ago. And
Golly,
and
I was young then.
we sat down. We were greeted well. We were made to feel comfortable. Offered tea, and went to
Did I really offer you tea?
Yes, you did.
It's not like me.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway, go ahead.
so we
She says
we did that.
we've got a gourmet,
We went to
gourmet meal to eat.
we went to another part of the house and sit down. And I remember Rosemary having a legal pad and a pen, and she sat down very comfortably and folded her legs and said, "Okay, who would you like to see?" And that question really kind of rocked me. I was like,
Who would you like to connect with?
Who would you
I
connect?
said, yeah.
Who would you like to connect with?
Yeah.
And why are you here? You know, kind of along with that. And we were all thinking, Andrea, my wife and I were thinking of people that had crossed over, people that had died in our lives fairly recently. Both her folks, my dad at the time, my mom later on. Our son, obviously, we were there primarily with the hope that some message would come through from Eric. So after saying that, before we were done, she just put the pad down and said, "They're all here," and started to describe to us the nuances of their physical personality and the experiences that we had with them when they were here on this side, to validate their existence that only they would know. I mean, Rosemary didn't have time to get the CIA and check us all out and make sure that she knew everything about us before we went to her house.
You know how people
You know.
think that's what
Well,
we do. We
you know,
get investigators
There
out.
was no,
Really?
there was no way. I mean, the definition, you know, again, the factual descriptions of our home, of our domicile, of furniture, of things that we had shared with Eric came right to the front immediately. And it was stuff that my wife and I were looking at each other dumbfounded with the evidence, the true evidence of our son's existence with us on this side. And that validation was no doubt the most healing experience that we had. And what I tag on to that, I'm speaking now to people who've lost close family members or friends by suicide or just in normal passing or accidents or what have you, is the idea that I would not want the teacher that we had for any other person, but I wouldn't change the lessons that we've received for anything in my life. It opened up a huge...
What do you mean you would? Oh, the teacher meaning the loss of Eric.
The loss of Eric
Right,
was,
right.
you know, in
Yeah, you
hindsight,
wouldn't.
obviously in the moment it wasn't something that we thought we were going to learn from, but in hindsight and having had some time afterwards to know that that was a teaching time in our lives, and it opened us up to a different level of loving, a different level of what was important in our lives and how we could be with other people. It was the beginning of a 15-year walk with Rosemary and on our own doing other recovery work. It was a beautiful experience, and I highly recommend it. Whether it's
I just want to add one thing, because what I find, of course I'm seeing it from a different point of view, but I think those in the spirit world really do let you know that they are actually here with you and that they can see. And I think that I remember the one thing, I don't know if it was this first time or I think it might have been this first time, when Jeff's son Eric decided that he was going to really, really let Jeff know, look, not only am I here, but boy, oh boy, and he told a tale on Jeff. Would you like to just briefly explain? You know how your kids, they tell on you sometimes, if they see you do something and they go to your mum, like, Dad did this. I saw Dad do that. And Eric had a lovely, lovely, lovely tale to tell
More than one.
on his
But I'll
dad,
tell-
or more
but-
than one, but you know what I'm thinking.
The
Yeah?
one primary one was he described a window in a wall that he and I had built together. He had been working doing some carpentry work with me, so he was very familiar with the job site, and it was for ourselves. It was at our own home, and he said, "You've got to move the window." And I had put a transom window in fairly high off the floor, so that when we were finished, we'd be laying in bed, being able to look out at the sky through this window. And it was not a skylight, but just in a wall. But I had put it in, and it was 6 inches off center. And Eric said, "You have to move the window." And I knew it was off 6 inches. Andrea looked at me and said, "What window? What's off 6 inches?" Well, I hadn't told her.
And Eric
And
was saying,
And I burst out laughing.
the window isn't right. It's
It
in the
wasn't
wrong
centered.
place. And the only person who knew that was Jeff, and Andrea had no clue. She looked at the window and she had no clue it was off center.
But at that point, it was rough framing, so it isn't something that you would have picked up. But I knew it, and he knew I knew it, and he said that
And
story.
you were trying to get away with it, weren't you?
I was doing some bargaining, yes, but I knew I was going to have to move it at some point. But it was just a beautiful thing. So I went home, and my friend was working with me, and I took a Sawzall and I cut the frame out and moved it over 6 inches, put it in the center, and did what I was told.
And I'm sure your son was very happy with you because you did
Absolutely.
as you were told.
And we've had many, many laughs about that. And again, that freedom, that lightness of knowing was so reassuring and so cuddling and comforting. Regardless of him telling on me, bring it. I'm happy to hear it,
I also think people think that when they come to see someone like me, it's going to be a very somber affair.
Mm.
Well, it is. We all cry a lot. I pretend not to cry because I'm supposed to be the strong one. But everybody cries. We all cry. We cry together. But the laughter and the joy that comes from those in the spirit world, it really, you can't help but have a positive attitude once you've had that experience. Al, I know you've had your experiences with me too, and experiences of the spirit world. Al, sort of, 18 months ago? Or is it 2 years ago that you lost your dad?
Over 2 years now.
Oh gosh, it's like, it goes
Wow.
so fast.
Mm-hmm.
But I was talking to Al's dad before he passed a little bit.
Yep.
And did that help you with your attitude, having that experience?
I think talking about that, yes, it helped me. But going back to what we said in the very beginning about going with the flow, I think there are things that, like, it's easy to say go with the flow, right, and just be accepting of what happens to you. And I kicked and screamed for a while after my father passed away, but at a certain point, I accepted that it was what it was, and through you, Rosemary, and through my own experiences, I know that he's there. And what I would love to be able to do for everybody that's watching is, Jeff, you described like a really poignant way of you being able to sort of go with the flow and understand that this was the direction that your life was in now through a loss that is. I mean, I couldn't even imagine the loss you suffered, but for everybody listening, like, what if there isn't that moment? What if there isn't a Rosemary? What if there isn't that moment where they let God and let go, as you always say, Rosemary? What if they don't know that going with the flow is the most healthy thing or the right thing to do? What advice would you give to those people that are sort of lost at this point and need to just let God and let go and go with the flow?
What recipe do we have for them?
And what recipe do we have?
What recipe would we have for people suffering loss? I just want to say, before I'm going to hand that over to you for a minute, But I do want to say that as much as we listen to Jeff, and as much as you have sort of come to terms with things, you did your fair share of kicking and screaming too,
Oh,
didn't
yeah,
you,
by
in
all
the
means,
beginning?
by all means.
So Jeff didn't sort of, because he had this the affinity with the Native Americans, because he knew them, because he'd been working with them and so on, did not mean that therefore it was easy for him to accept that what had happened. I mean, you kicked, you screamed, you cursed, you did all of those things, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, it was actually delayed. There was some delay in that, and I realized that that's what happens with the trauma of death, and healing comes. It's not immediate. It's
No,
and I've
no.
had the gift of a healthy life, a well supported life in the last 15 years, and much before that, for sure, to set us up to be able to go through this.
To handle yeah. Now, going back to Al and what Al is saying, because, Rosemary is only one tiny, tiny little particle in the universe, as we all are. And so many people don't have a Rosemary, or they don't have someone to help them. So many people don't have a belief in anything. How can we help those people who do not have a support system, who are struggling with a loss? And whether it's your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, your son, your daughter, whatever it is, loss is loss. And even though I say to people, the worst kind of loss for me ultimately must be the loss of a child, it does not take away from the pain that people feel. The loss of a cat or a dog, it's painful. It doesn't mean that other people's pain, because it's not so traumatic, doesn't mean it's less. Their pain is their pain. So how can we help those people who are maybe tuning in for the first time, wondering what on earth is this all about?
Right.
We had a guy yesterday on our YouTube show who because we've every now and again because it's a live show and people can check in and they can chat live, so we sometimes get these awful people. They're just mean, they're vitriolic and so on, and we just block them. We don't even entertain them, we block them. But there was a guy on who came saying, I don't believe, but he was so respectful in the way that he put his point across. And one or two people were saying, thank you very much, everybody listening, protective of me. They don't want me to be hurt by these things, and they want to defend me, which is lovely. But I do feel that even people who don't believe or don't have a belief system and don't know what to do in different circumstances, there are people searching out there. And I do understand why people don't believe what we believe in, and they don't understand it, they don't get it. But if people are respectful, we're very happy to talk to anybody who's respectful. If somebody can say to me, well, I'm sorry, but I don't believe in all of this, and that's their choice. What do we do? How can we help people who don't have necessarily a belief system, as Al was saying? What ingredients would we suggest for people? Because you can't say have faith, because if they don't believe in anything, they don't have any faith.
Well, from one tool that I used, it was a little bit later on, and I kind of go back to what we talked about a few months back when I was here with you folks. There's no timeline on this grieving. Everybody's grief and the way they heal is unique to them. So please understand that I'm aware of that, and I'm not telling someone that they've got to do what I say right now or at any point, or at some point that I hope they will. But I was able to actually do an inventory, and I use that word because I can't think of a better way to do it, a list of the things that I could celebrate that I had experienced with my son. And I was able to do that after, and it was a while. It was after I'd seen Rosemary. It was after I had seen a video that a good friend of mine had made about transitions, and that means when people are dying and when they go over. And I wrote down a list of the experiences that I had with my son. He was 21 years old when he passed. I was very, very fortunate to have a relationship with both of my boys. I have a surviving son as well who's married, and I was in their life along the way. So I was able to go back and look and say, what I was most sad about in his passing was the dashed hopes of the future. I really didn't have a lot of undone fathering or relational things with my son. Of course, there's things that I might have said to him when he was a kid that I shouldn't have said as an adult, mistakes that I made as a human being. But I didn't regret.
Parents do that.
We do. We're normal. I mean, it's what happens. I mean, if it's what happens. But I was able to write down a list of the things that I really celebrated with him. And that was hugely helpful for me because it took me away from doing the inventory, which I did mentally. I didn't write it down. Maybe I should have. But rather than being a victim and staying in that place, staying in that grief, sad, poor me, and that's a real feeling. I don't say that tongue in cheek. I don't say that to put anybody down or anything like that. But I didn't have a lot on that side of the table. Most of it was experiential positive things. And the loss was, like you said, Al, it's horrific. It's awful. Anybody's loss is a hard deal. But I had so many positives that I could embrace over time. Immediately, I'm not sure what the answer would be.
Well, I think,
other than patience and take in love.
I think that it's a fabulous thing, and it's something that I tell people to do, is to try and look on the positives and so anybody out there who is struggling and doesn't have faith and doesn't have God and doesn't have a support system, I think one of the amazing things that we can do is to take a look, as with you, Al, and look at your dad. I mean, go down memory lane. When I'm in a hospital with people, especially if somebody's in a coma, but even whatever it is, if I'm in a hospital situation with a patient and with their family, I take them down memory lane. And we have nurses and doctors coming into the room saying, what is going on here? There's too much laughter. We're at a deathbed situation. Often the patient is very involved, dying, but very involved because his brother's come to visit and they're talking about when they went fishing and someone fell in the river. And then somebody else, do you remember when? Go down memory lane and look at all those things that you can laugh about, the things that you had fun with, the positives of having known the person that you have lost. What were the positives in that? And what were the things that made you laugh? What were the things that made you cry, but then you ended up laughing because of the ridiculousness of the arguments and the upsets, because we all have those. And if you focus on all of the negatives, you're going to just go down that road and you're just going to keep going down, 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 down. So I think one of the important ingredient is to go down memory lane, make your list, as you said, look at the positives, but also look at the things that, when you were kids or when your child was a kid, and the things that used to make you laugh, or the things that you just wanted to hold them and hug them because in everybody's life there are those sensitive, beautiful moments that we have, especially with our children. And it might just be a memory of holding that child in your arms when he wouldn't stop crying, and then all of a sudden he did stop crying. Small things like that. But I would take it further, and this is another ingredient, and I'm afraid it's about making lists here, but something that you said really resonated with me just now, because you said the most painful thing was the loss of the hopes and dreams that you had for your child. So I would suggest, whether or not you believe in an afterlife, here is another ingredient that you should put in your pot. What if? What if? Just suppose. Suspend belief or non-belief. Suspend your skepticism for a few minutes here, suspend it. And the odds are against me, but what if she is right? What if there really is a spirit world? What if? So big ingredient is what if? What if she's right? What if Jeff is saying, because I don't think you're here telling lies to fool everybody, but so what if Jeff is telling the truth? What if somehow or another she was able to connect with Eric, who said that window's wrong, get it fixed? Just what if that really did happen? So that's another ingredient in the bowl, is the what if. And then go to the next step. If you do a what if there is such a thing as a life after death, your hopes and your dreams for your children don't stop. Because if they have survived death, what if they meet their angels? What if they get an opportunity to learn and to grow in some way? What if they get to meet, I don't know, what is her name? Michelangelo. What if they get to meet some amazing? What if? So I think, Al, that would be, to make the list of the positives, to make the list of the funny things, to go down memory lane and to put that what if, that big what if, just what if she is not full of nonsense? What if what she's saying is real?
What I'd also add too, and again, focusing on the positive nature of things too, the legacy of whoever's gone lives. Whether you believe that, hey, this is it and we're done or not, the legacy of them lives on, and that means that for yourself, Jeff, I'm sure it's changed, and you've influenced a lot of people's lives in a different way that you never would have interacted with or influenced if your son didn't pass away. And for me, my father, I can relate to the world in a very different way now since my father has passed away, and understand and empathize and help others that are going through loss in a very different way than I was able to before my father. So at the point of that tragedy or loss, the legacy lives on, and everything that happens from there. Yes, there's grief, and yes, you go through a lot, and even going down memory lane sometimes is a challenge at first, right? But what you become impacts the world in an exponentially positive way if you move forward and go with the flow and accept what has happened. If you do not, then the negative builds and builds and builds, right?
I think of what thought just came into my mind was the birth of a child and the passing of a person going to the other side. That transition time, coming into this life, this physical body life, I have these ideas that it's a miraculous, sacred, powerful time. And when the person crosses over and they go to another place, and I believe they do, I just believe that they do.
It's fine.
There's a sacred
Me three.
There's a sacred magical time. And I think we're all looking for it. We're looking for a definition for that. And when a child arrives, there's love. The love is the word. And when someone leaves, there's sadness, but there is deeper, for me, it's deeper love, because I know that they're there today. I know that those elders, my dad, for instance, I'm thinking of people older than me that went before me. My mom, they're there. Andrea's folks, my nanny and papa, as they were known by our children. And it's a wonderful idea to know that how is that the bumper sticker that says we're spiritual beings having a human experience?
Well, that's Teilhard de Desjardins,
Okay.
who said that. I like to add on to this. This is my, not that if he's listening, he would maybe not appreciate it, but he said we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and I like to say we are spiritual beings having a human experience, hopefully in a spiritual way. I like to think that we can, bringing that spiritualness into our human experience. But I think that it's whether or not you believe in God. I mean, and quite frankly, God is only dog spelt backwards. And I do believe in my dog always because he's gorgeous. But anyway, God is different things for different people. God is non-existent for many people. He is actually he, she, it. I think God is that energy, that incredible universal force of energy that is out there, which nobody, whoever you are, whatever you believe, you can't deny universal energy because it's, after all, scientists tell us so, don't they? When we have to believe it when scientists tell us so. But whatever you believe it is, or the birth of a child, even the birth of a puppy, the birth of a kitten, the birth of anything at all, I see, and this is my positive attitude, I see this as the most tremendous gift, and for me to be here on this earth, and I think this is what you're saying, Jeff. I feel that whatever that force is that's out there that created me and created this life, for all of its really nasty stuff, because there has been some nasty stuff in my life, as there has been in yours, and I'm sure yours, Al, too. For all of the stuff that we, that we wish didn't happen, at the same time, I'm glad it did, because that's my learning process. And I am so grateful that I have been given the gift of a life, a human life, so that I can experience everything there is out there to experience. And if I take that, and if people, and another ingredient into the bowl, if you take that, the preciousness of life, and understanding that, sometimes we, what am I doing here? And how come I got all the rotten cards and everybody else seems to get the good cards? But if you just move past that and say, but I am here and I have this gift, and it's for me to choose what I do with it. That inspires you to have a positive attitude and to go forward positively into the world, no matter you might be kicking and screaming sometimes when you're doing it, right?
Rosemary and Jeff, you said attitude of gratitude, right, which we've repeated a number of times.
We like that one, Jeff.
This is not, we're talking about going with the flow and acceptance of what is, and either moving forward in a positive way or not, right? And this applies to not just loss, which we've been focusing on here, but really any situation that confronts you. There are times that you can get around and maneuver things and do certain things within an environment, but there are other times that you're given circumstances that it is what it is. And if you don't accept it, if you kick and scream, as we were saying before, you're and I'm not saying to just always go with the flow and let whatever happen and never have any control of anything. I'm just saying that there are going to be, like loss, there are going to be circumstances in life that you can't do anything about, and you need to be able to move forward in a positive, accept and move forward in a positive way, whatever that situation might be.
Right.
I heard from a good mentor friend of mine years ago. I tended, and still do to some degree, I push against the things that I don't want to have happening in my life. So one day
he's a retrospective soul.
So
he can't help himself.
So he had me put my hand up, and he put his hand up, and we touched hands, and he started pushing on my hand. And I pushed back gently. I just resisted. And it was a metaphor. He knew that I was a very physical person and that I would understand that lesson. And he said, okay, now take your hand down and put your hands in your pockets. And I'm going to say the same things to you now. And with my hands at ease, because he was saying something to me while he was pushing on me. And with my hands at ease, it was a completely different experience. Because I didn't have to engage my physical, the things that I knew were my physical life. I didn't have to engage that. I could just listen. I could hear what he was saying to me.
Can I elaborate slightly on that? Because here I think is what was happening. And we're all we all like to have control. We all like to be in control sometimes. And when you're pushing, and particularly fire signs, you don't like it when somebody else is in control and telling you what to do. I mean, that's very much a fire sign trait.
It's cheaper if you just let me do it. Costs
Yeah.
more if you help me.
Yeah. So, when you're pushing, it's like saying, I'm not. I don't want to lose control here. I
Right.
want to have some say. I want to have some control over my life, my actions. So I'm listening to you, but hey, but I'm here as well, and I'm as much part of this. When you put your hands in your pocket, you're literally saying, I'm handing it over to you. You have the control, or I'm finally going to stop trying to take control. I'm going to listen. And that's what you were doing. I do have to say that Jeff came and fixed my toilet today, right? And he did say, it was just something you just reminded me of, which has nothing to do with this conversation whatsoever, but
I don't know. It's going with the flow.
He did. We're going with the flow here. Yeah, exactly.
So to speak.
Literally. He was in the bathroom and I walked in and he looked at me and he said, okay, it's $35 an hour unless you watch. If you watch, it's $40 an hour. And if you try to help, it's $45 an hour. It was the nicest way anyone has said to me, get out, mind your own business. I'm doing this my way. But anyway, sorry.
So she went with the flow.
I went with the flow. My toilet is working beautifully, flowing nicely. I might say, do we have any comments out there, Al?
We do. My dog is not behaving, so hopefully she does not start barking. We have a number of comments. Maggie, when we were talking about food, said, "I love that dish." Mitchell is on. He says, "Hi everyone. The meal and dessert sound delicious." Lori's on too. Lori's taking the course, and we've been trying to connect on Facebook. Hasn't happened yet, but we will, Lori. Lori, let's see, she was responding to some stuff here. She says, was remembering Jeff's last visit. My friend who lost her son couldn't get out of bed today to meet me for breakfast after my appointment. So healing to her friend who lost her son, for sure. And Nettie says, hello, I work with people who lost their family.
I'm not sure.
No, okay.
Nettie says, I work with people who lost their family members through death as well, and I fully grasp the sacredness of this work. So she's saying what we talked about already. She does not have the gift of knowing spirit, and wanted advice. So it's great that we talked about for people who didn't see the spirits or don't have a Rosemary to talk to.
This ingredient, what if, just the what if is the most important thing. What if what we're saying is right? What if it really is possible? Suspend your beliefs or disbeliefs or whatever. Suspend time, if you like, and in that moment, what if, and allow the possibilities of the what if. So these, I feel, are the ingredients that we have. We have the list which Jeff suggested, which is to list all the positives of the life that you've shared with that whoever it is that you've lost. All of the positives. There'll be lots of negatives. Don't go down the negative road. Stay on the positive. Go down memory lane, which is, I think, is huge. Find the fun and the excitement, the joy, the tender moments, because even if you're still fighting with someone, even if someone passed and you were fighting with them, to have had a relationship with them at all, there must have been some tender moments in there, some caring moments in there. So, so go down memory lane, do the what if. It's a huge, huge thing, the what if, and understand, Al, as you've said, that this is, how did you put it?
It's you understand that their legacy and what happens from this point on it has positive things.
Throw those things into the pot and give them a really, really good, generous stir. And that way you do have something to hold on to that will help you, whether or not you believe as we do. whether or not you have a rosemary or something, that's going to end up being one of those things in a dictionary. What is a rosemary? You know. And it won't be a herb anymore. It won't be a flower. It won't be, won't be something pretty that grows or something that makes food taste good. It'll be a me. What is a rosemary? It'll be a, what am I actually? How would you describe a rosemary, Jeff? Let's go. We're going with the flow.
I have to bail Jeff out because he's gonna, no matter what he says, he's gonna get in trouble here. So
It might get less chicken. How would you describe a rosemary if it was in the dictionary and it actually did? While you're thinking of it, I just want to let everybody know that I am talking to the Spanish publishers who are thinking of republishing The Eagle and the Rose for the millennium. They've got something like, I think, between 10 and 18 titles that they're going to publish this coming May, they're hoping. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. They do want to do it. And we're talking. We're sort of in negotiations right now. Anyway, did you think of the description of a rosemary?
Yeah, rosemary is a person that has honed the art of talking to dead people.
Perfect. Look at that. Al, what would you say a rosemary is?
again, like Jeff, I mean, he really did it in a safe way. I mean, that was
Yes, he did, didn't
I
he?
mean, it was a bit of a cop out too, Jeff. If I'm I mean, really.
Yeah, come on.
That's it. That's all you're getting.
I would say a rosemary is someone who is there for you in more ways than I know myself can count, and she understands not just those from the spirit world, but
He or she doesn't have to be a she.
He or she, from the spirit world, and really is able to help people in ways that only she can, because of this holistic connection she has with not just the spirit world, but with people in general.
And I would say, added to that, a rosemary is a person who can take ingredients and make something really great out of nothing. That's what a rosemary is to me. Mm-hmm. Whether it's food, whether it's everything is attitude, whether it's an ingredients for life, whatever it is. Because I think, that we, all of us, if we really care to look about our lives and look at what we're doing and how we're doing it, we all of us have ingredients. Whether it's in your kitchen cupboard, your refrigerator, in your heart, your soul, your mind, every one of us has ingredients to make our lives better. Our food, our sustenance, every one of us has food for growth. God did not, somebody said to me, I think it was yesterday on YouTube, Al, do you remember this question? Did God give us any gifts? Did I believe that God gave us gifts, the gift of patience and what have you? And I said, I do not believe for 1 minute that God or dog or it or she or he or whatever it is you want to call that God force out there, I do not believe that we were thrown onto this planet and given this life, without recourse. I don't think anyone or anything or whatever threw us out here and said, now get on with it. We have, every one of us, tremendous tools that we can use. We have we have our brain, we have our sight, we have all of our senses, those 5 common senses which connect us to that 6th sense. We have the ability to be kind, to have affinity with people. We have the ability to be empathetic or sympathetic. Every one of us has ingredients. And, it would be lovely if everybody listening to this would take a good look at themselves and ask themselves, what ingredients do I personally have? And you know that I'm coming to you with these questions, right? What ingredients do I personally have that I can use to help me to learn to grow in my life. So I'm going to throw it to Jeff first because I'm being kind to Al. I'm giving you time to think out. What ingredients, off the top of your head, do you think you had, from, let's say, from the beginning, and they might have developed, or you might have suppressed them a little bit, or been encouraged to suppress them in you? Can you think of any ingredients that you were born with that help you with your life?
My ability to pitch in and help someone in need is one.
So your willingness,
My willingness to help
yeah.
is one. And I don't say that from a, I'm
You're
owed
not boasting. It just is. It's a
It's just-
fact.
And I,
Yeah.
and I, while you were speaking, I was thinking back in my life and the kids that I would friend up with who maybe were a little bit on the margin, or I was on the margin. I thought, in my mind, I thought I lived on the margin of what was socially acceptable, or how my family was.
Always on the edge.
Always kind of out there on the edge.
Never in the thick of things.
And
Always on the outside looking in.
And the adults that were in my life brought me to the front. They kept bringing me to the front, and I would step back, but I would bring somebody with me. And that's carried through my life.
So the willingness to include other people in your life.
Right. It's the richness of my experience.
That's the big ingredient in your cupboard.
Yeah.
Al, what is the big ingredient you think in your? No, you might have a few.
I think giving me time to think of it was the wrong thing to do.
All right. Well, come on.
I'm keeping up to you.
Get on.
I think a little bit ability to sit back and observe and be able to look at situations, understand, analyze, empathize. Having a pretty strong moral compass my whole life, and understanding what the right thing to do is has helped me have a positive attitude, and understanding that somebody always has it worse, which I've always subscribed to, keeps me on the right path a lot as well.
So you've got all of those ingredients. Would you both like to know my top ingredient, my personal top ingredient?
Sure.
Humor. I can laugh at anything, no matter what. I have been bent double with my back and found humor. I have been in a hospital bed, bent over with the most, my poor finger, it's only a finger. I've been in a hospital bed with kidney stuff, and I somehow I've always found the ability to find humor even in the most difficult of circumstances. And I thank God, because I believe in God, I thank God that I have that sense of humor, because if I hadn't, I always say to people, if I hadn't got this sense of humor, I'd have killed myself dozens of times in my life. So we're done, I think. My message to everybody, our message is, look at yourself, see what ingredients come to mind, and use them every day. Bring them to the fore every day. Put them in a pot, stir them around, mix them up together. Nobody is helpless. Nobody's on their own. We're with you anyway. So I'd like to say thank you very much to Jeff for joining us. Once again,
Thank you for having me here.
But once again, you've been amazing, and we hope this is not the last time. And I'd like to say that, especially Al, to you, my co-host, thank you very much, and particularly to all of you out there who are watching. I do have to give a shout out to Gregel. I don't usually include Gregel in these Everything is Attitude shows. He's always there, but I try, to sort of not put him aside, but just keep it separate. But we have been talking about all of this stuff, and it's important to me that people do know my massive ingredient is my spirit guide, so that's good for me too. So, or for all of you out there who have been listening, watching, giving us your time and your energy. We should be here next Friday with Mitchell. Mitchell Coombs is a wonderful medium in Australia. We were talking on the phone the other night until some ridiculous hour in the morning. He just doesn't stop talking. It's not me. It really isn't me. I'm sure he's laughing when I'm saying that. We sort of get together. We can't stop, either of us. And he's lovely, and he'll be here next week on this show. And we're not quite sure what we're going to be talking about. Maybe we'll just go with the flow again. And we shall be back on Thursday morning with our live YouTube show, where you can get to chat, to ask questions, which I will do my very, very best to answer for you. Yesterday was a great show. You can go into YouTube and see all of these shows. Go back, see all of these shows. You can even go into Rosemary's Kitchen, because there I am as well in the kitchen. It's amazing what we do, right, Al?
Yes, and remember, for those who remember, the class starts next week. Anyone wants to join?
I was going to say, yeah, you still have time to join. The class starts next week. If you miss the first lesson, don't worry, you can join at any time. You just join in, and the lessons that you miss will help you with, so don't worry about that. To join the lessons, to know more about the lessons, Al, would you like to give the email that people need to?
Well, are we having them do the info at Everything is Attitude? Yes?
I think so. For now, until we sort of get everything together, info at attitudeiseverything.com. If you all want to, if anybody wants to come on the show, you're welcome. If you have a subject that you'd like us to talk about, we'd love to hear from you. So classes start next Thursday. Woohoo! Online courses. And we'll also be on YouTube Thursday morning. And that's it from us, because my chicken is perfectly cooked, she says, keeping my fingers crossed now. And we have other guests coming any minute. So until we see you again, think of us, right? We'll be eating arroz con pollo with chicken with delicious Spanish rice. We're going to be getting fatter and fatter even as we're speaking to you, and we're going to have these beautiful little pastries. We're
going to make a spirit plate tonight. We're going to put a little bit in a plate for the spirits.
We are?
Yeah.
And who's going to eat that then?
I'm going to take care of that.
All right then. It's like you leave the milk and the mince pie out for Santa Claus, and
that's right.
Miraculously it's gone the next day. I don't know how that happens, but that's what's going to happen tonight. In other words, he wants an extra portion. Thank you very much, everybody. Until we see you again next week, or whenever it is we see you, please, 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 please have a very, very, very